It is Monday, February 27th, 2017, and welcome to this episode of Code Evolution. So I was inspired to write this article the other day, Rules for Third-Party Web Scripts. Its original title was Stop Using Third-Party Web Scripts Now, and that didn't really go over well on Reddit. People seem to think it was fear-mongering or some sort of like extreme clickbaitish kind of a thing, and I admit it's probably a little bit more extreme, so I just changed it to what it is. And so I'd like to review this with you and talk a little bit about why I think this is important. So if you see this quote here, it is without question inappropriate to have present any third-party script on a page with a login, period. Now why, I would hope that everybody understands this. I would hope that anybody gets this point, because it just doesn't, when I'm engaging with people and they argue against this, I'm a bit confused, I admit. Like, why would you think this was okay? That some third party, whether it's Google or whether it's a tracking thing, an advert or whatever, it should not exist on someone's login at any point in time. And because it's a security risk. And, for example, people think that it's completely safe. I don't know how you could think it was safe. If it is a JavaScript include, it is possible for that JavaScript to basically rewrite the DOM and put something in place there that's like, it's just like as if it was on ATM. And I say this in this article. So I'm going to go ahead and read it really quick. It's not that long. And then, again, I would really like for people to kind of comment on this. I would hope I would get some support around migrating away from using third-party scripts where it doesn't make sense. Having third-party scripts on your website is completely fine. There's nothing wrong with Google Analytics per se. It's a free service, right? And it's used everywhere. Having a like button from Facebook, that's another one too. There's all these ones that are intentionally in place to kind of help, us manage our websites. But when it's a login or any sensitive page, let's say even a social network where your name is on the page and there's nothing else that really identifies you, but your name associated with what maybe your political views are, and now you have some third-party entity that's able to gather that information, isn't that the job of the social network itself and not the third party? So we're automatically serving off people's information, or essentially selling other people's information out without them really consenting to it, because it's someone else's license agreement that we're signing them up for. So that's, I think, is a problem. So let's get started here. So Google has been the king of services and third-party scripts, like their nearly inescapable Google Analytics, but also many of their other services, including their APIs, etc. Many web developers reach and rely on a diverse number of third-party script references to help either their site function or to provide insight into its operation. Now, let's take a pause for a second and let's talk about this utility that I use called UMatrix. Now, as a user, I do not want third-party scripts to infiltrate my browsing experience, because I'm smart enough to know that I don't want to give a third party anything, right? It's okay if, let's say for example, if Facebook decided to use a third party script, which there's a good chance they do, but they included it in their own domain, or in this case their CDN, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's an intentionally served by them script, and they've taken on the responsibility and they've taken on the initiative to include it in a first domain. So I don't have to concern myself whether or not it's third party or not. So that's okay. And this is, you can see, a sample of how Facebook does things. Now Facebook, being a social network, and I'm critical of it, they do a damn good job, and they have done a damn good job of not violating these rules. So, for example, you have Facebook, they've got their cookies, they've got some of their static domains. UMatrix will kind of works with uBlock Origin. So, pixel.facebook, this is their kind of tracking engine kind of thing going on here. So it automatically blocks that. And then I include all the fbcdn.net subdomains here. and then I'm blocking ads. So it's pretty clean. There really isn't any third-party stuff going on. And you'll see here, even the double click is just an iframe. Now, uMatrix, if you haven't heard of it, it's a little bit of a pain for a lot of users because they just want to have their browser experience. But if you are somebody like me and you really want to be taking control of your browsing experience, I use uBlock Origin for ads, but I also use uMatrix to guarantee that there isn't any degree of violation. Now, uMatrix by default is a little bit lax. Like it'll let CSS and images in by default across the board, things like that, which for most people is great. So if you get your grandma and she doesn't go online very often and you want to protect her, you can use this and it would still kind of work. But it would frustrate most people when websites that are JavaScript heavy are going to be like, hey, it's not working, right? So for those people that are interested, do check it out. It's great. It really kind of replaced NoScript for me because NoScript is kind of a global blocker. This is per site, customizable, which is great. And the rules themselves are just like proxy rules. So you can go in and you can modify it if you have any knowledge of that. So moving on. Third-party scripts present a risk to the user and to the developer as neither are in control of what the script does or how it changes. Users can and should block third-party scripts by using open source tools like uMatrix, which can also assist in cookie control, to ensure only the code they approve is used while they browse, and developers should be concerned about their users' privacy and security. It has been a world of adoption first, security second. It's time for that to change. Now, the counter argument here that I keep getting, and I understand where people are coming from, is that this is how we make money online, right? We put third-party scripts everywhere. We put advertisements everywhere. This is the norm, right? The norm is this is what we do. And I understand why people are saying that, but I don't feel that it's justified to just put that flag up and be like, this is how we do things today. Well, everything changes. And we've kind of gone in a direction, I think, that's gone too far over one side of the, of things. And we're at a critical point where things should be changing and we should be implementing more security controls. Hacking is becoming more publicly noticed. It's not been any less, really. I think it's just getting more refined, to be honest. And we're seeing more of it happening, and people are reporting more instances of identity theft and things of the like. So we really need to be concerned about this stuff, especially as web developers, because we're kind of in control of this. We should be the people who are talking about this and promoting better security. But when people go and say, well, this is just how it is, that I think is a cop-out. And I really don't think it should continue, especially with the trajectory that we're on. So I'm going to try to cut this shorter now for like the TLDR kind of thing and summarize. And you guys can read the rest of the article, on your own. But basically, as you see here, rule number 1, pages with logins or any personally identifiable information must only have first-party scripts. So, or the negation of that is they should not have third-party scripts, right? And so the basic gist of that is if you serve everything first-party, then you're kind of guaranteeing that, look, we are in control of this. We either have a copy of that script and then we're serving it up, and then we're managing that code ourselves, which again is going to create a higher amount of compatibility for maybe older or low-end browsers or some sort of device browser that's like, we're not going to allow for that kind of stuff. There is that argument there. But the primary thing is that you're saying, hey, we might be scraping information, but we're the ones doing it, not a third party. And I mean, with logins, I really shouldn't have to explain this, right? Like you're creating, you're opening a doorway, you're opening a doorway to someone else doing something, and for example, here I say, you might be asking what harm could they do? Well, come on, there's plenty they can do. It's almost kind of creepy what they can do. In fact, even an expert might not be able to tell you the possibilities, right? So I basically say here at the end of that section, note to developers, also keep in mind that advertisements are quite often just a third-party script, and there are only a few but totally acceptable edge cases where it is safe to serve ads to a logged in user. So, but you can, it's not saying that you can't. It's just, hey, keep that in your head. Note to users, I talk about using uBlock Origin as a way to protect yourself. And people go, well, now you're telling people to basically use use blockers and not, this is how I make money. Now you're telling people to not allow me to make money. And I don't understand that argument. It's basically saying, no, if you're being improper with how you're using these third-party scripts, then you deserve not to make money. That's kind of it, I guess. I don't know. It's like people should be able to protect themselves, and you're not giving them a choice, right? Okay, so lastly here, rule number 2, use only third-party scripts that do not block site operation. This is just kind of a, if you are going to use them, it's nice if you're able to browse that website. Let's say if I'm somebody that's like, well, I don't want third-party scripts running, I can block the script, but I can still use your website. Google Analytics does this. It's not something, they basically boot up after your page is up and then do their wiring up after the fact, the DOM and things like that. And that's great. It works well if you just don't include it, and being able to block it makes it kind of nice that I don't have to concern myself. I just block it and the site still works, right? So, when I really break it down here, the important part, I think, is kind of the last statement here. And that is, we have built a world of techno-fragility because sometimes a speedy evolution requires risks. As hacking becomes more visible to the public, we all have to become aware of these ever-present risks and start making privacy and security important again. And, kind of to backtrack a little bit, people are like, well, privacy is dead. But what you're not considering the fact is that privacy is important to security because our information is part of what secures us, right? That's what people do. When you go on Facebook and there's all these things that basically are trying to gather your password questions, right? Where like, if you, what's some of the weird ones they have? It's like, if you combine this with this, you get your stripper name or something. I don't understand how that works. But the point is that those questions they're asking you are stuff that's literally the questions that show up on your password, your password questions. So they're kind of scraping that, and it's people who are not really thinking about that or offering up stuff that they shouldn't. So it's the same kind of thing. That bit of those just simple bits of information, who your first dog was, or where you were born, all those kind of things. Those questions, to be honest, shouldn't even be answered anymore in these password questions because they're easily discovered, right? Somebody can look up that information and be like, oh, well, he lived there, and well, look him talk about his first dog on Facebook or something, right? So probably shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, I would love to hear some opinions about this. I'm a little bit worried that there's either one, a lot of complacency, and that people just don't care, and that two, that there's even kind of just more resistance to change, or people are just, or developers are just lazy, but lazy in the bad way, right? Like there's a saying, a lazy developer is a good developer because they find ways to do things better. So if you have like a global template, for example, is an advancement in being able to be lazier, because then you don't have to update, the site one by one. But if you embedded a third-party script in your global template and it propagated across the entire website, and you didn't consider the fact that that same global template is used on secure pages, you're probably, if you get my point, I hope, you're probably compromising your users' security and privacy. So thanks a lot. Give this video a like if you liked it. Dislike it if you're like, this is stupid. I would never do this, and definitely comment if you have an opinion, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.